G'day everybody, welcome to part 5 of the Speed Passion LM1 build series. Part 5 is going to be the start of the assembly of the steering system. So what we'll be building is the steering rack. And so what I've done is I've got all the parts necessary. Now, pay attention to with the screws. There's some very small screws. These ones here. I think there's only 2 of these, and this is for the steering assembly. So I'm not too sure if I need those 2 screws. So bear in mind of the screws that are necessary. Alright, peoples. When you're building this kit, and it also goes for other kits too, you'll find that the bags for a kit, in this case this kit, you'll find that they're all relative to each section that you build. So for instance, in this case with the ball bearings, all the ball bearings for the steering system were in the bags that I needed. So just pay attention to the bags. It'll even, on the instruction manual here, it'll show you, or not show you, tell you the bags that are needed. Okay, so to start off with, what we will be doing is the steering posts. We'll start by putting those in. So we'll need our 2 flathead screws. We'll need our 2mm hex driver, and we will need some thread lock as well, as always, just a bit. And when I do it, you possibly can't see it, I just put it, hang on a sec, I usually put it just around the tip, and that's all you'll need. So we'll do the first post here. Okay, that's that one. Rinse and repeat. It's actually, personally, I'm finding it a fairly easy kit to put together. Okay, so those are the steering posts on, and I'll have to look in the viewfinder here, folks. Due to the colour of the chassis and the colour of the parts, it might be a little bit hard for you to see what I'm doing. I mean, the majority of the chassis you'll get are black. Some companies will put out a white edition, just for the bling effect and more money. But so yeah, you'll probably see. Find it hard to see a few little things, but I'll keep a check of it. Anyway, it's enough talking. What we'll do now is we'll get our ball bearings, and we will put them into excuse me, we'll put them into part of the steering rack. Okay, so that's that one. Next one. Now, when it comes to time to putting it on, please pay attention to orientation, because if you look at this, you'll see how the section here is up slightly higher, whereas the bottom part here is flush. So just pay attention to what way it goes on. So I'll get them around the right way. We'll put the bearings into here. Okay, it's fairly straightforward. Now, next part, what we will need is 2 pillow ball screws, and we will need 2 washers, 1 for each screw. We'll just put them on like so. Okay, 2mm. I'm in the bad habit of putting stuff somewhere where it shouldn't be, and then I end up losing where I've put it. Okay, so now we put it in. Note the orientation. Do it in all the way and just nip it once it starts to go tight, so you don't over tighten it. Okay, that's that bit done. Now what we'll do is we'll put the third one in. Doesn't require a washer. But what it does require is... that's not going to work doing it that way. It does require a small nut on the end. So what we'll do, again, little thread lock on the tip. Well, actually what we'll do is we'll put it towards the end of the thread, because that's where it's going to be held tight. Boy. Okay, just tighten it up. Okay, that's that section there done. Alrighty, now what we'll do now is we'll get our two button head screws. Now there are 4 more washers. We'll need 2 washers for each screw. Now what has to be done is it will go onto the part of the steering rack like so. Now when you put it through, put these through first. We'll do one at a time. Okay, so now we'll need 2 washers. When you're doing it too, if you're using thread lock, I mean I didn't get any on my fingers, but if you do get a little bit of thread lock on your fingers, just if you got a towel or something, just wipe it off as well. Just a little tip for you. The reason being is you don't want any thread lock getting into your bearings. So now the next part, carefully put it down and on. Okay. Okay, nip it tight, then back it off a little bit, because this is something that you want to move freely. So we'll do it again. Put it through the bearing. Put the 2 washers on. And then carefully put it onto part of the steering rack. Just tighten it a little bit by hand. That way it's into the thread, that way you can pick it up. And then you tighten it. Okay, again, nip it tight, then back it off. Okay, so you want it to move like that. Okay, now the next part is we put it on top of the, make sure you do it simultaneously like so. So you want it to move nice and free like that. Now next part. Now this next part here you need to be very careful, because again you do not want thread lock to get into your bearings. Be very careful. Like that. Do it again. Okay, so I didn't need those 2 screws. Plop them back in there. So that's part of the steering rack done. Now when you're doing it, make sure that it moves nice and freely, like that. So when you test it, put it up against the like a bit of gravity, and see, comes down nicely. There's no binding. So that's what you want. Alright folks, that's the end of part 5. Part 6, what we will be looking at is the continuation with the steering, but we'll also move into the suspension system for the steering as well, and we'll possibly look at getting into installing the steering servo. Stay tuned.